Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Y'all, I am so excited to watch this TV show today. I'm not reacting to this TV show, but I just wanted to tell you because it's been a while since I watched it. I will be watching Goosebumps. I don't know, when me and my sister was talking about this last night, and I have not seen Goosebumps in so long. It's such a weird show, but that's what I grew up on and I love it. You can actually watch it on Disney Plus. That's why I'm excited because I got Disney Plus. But you know, just had to say that. Also, let me talk about the look today. We went simple, turtleneck, gold earrings, because when I got it on, it's serious. Also, look at the makeup today, y'all. I don't know if y'all know, I just did liner. I have only liner on my eyes. I just wanted a full black eye with some lashes, so here we go. We are talking about some torture today, okay? This is about a mom who did some unthinkable things up here to her kids using Vietnam War torture. I don't know what torture methods they had. I had to look up what year it was. I'm not too, like, y'all, I was about to say U.S., but I'm here. Hopefully, I think everybody would talk about the history of, you know, the wars. The Vietnam War lasted 20 years, 55 to 75. A lot of troops died. Can you imagine fighting for 20 years? Oh my God. That's kind of how it was in like Iraq, right? When the soldiers, they were there for like 20 years. Jeez. But we have, I don't know what methods they was doing. I didn't look that part up, but I will hope she didn't research this, because it's like, it's sick. These people that's like abusing kids, y'all, it's been so much. These parents, she looked like a young mom too. She could just have some good genes, I don't know. But like, why would you torture your child? Like, what is that about? I don't know what's going on. There's something in the water that's making everybody go crazy, because I seen one, which I don't think I'm gonna react to, but I'm gonna see, put it on the list. It's a long list already I gotta react to. But this man killing his parents, like, it's just non-stop, y'all. And that was a grown man. Parents killing their parents, children killing their parents, parents killing their kids, people killing their dogs. Y'all, what is going on? I don't know, but we're gonna get right into it because I'm actually very curious, because y'all know I'm gonna have some stuff to say. So let's get into it.
It is a shockingly graphic story of betrayal and torture. The latest in a trio of defendants has just been sentenced to prison for her role in a brutal child abuse case. We're analyzing the details with Anna Sonoda, an expert on how predators target kids. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime.
Because they are predators, they're sick people.
20-year-old Maria Evans will spend the next 2 decades in prison after she pled guilty to a reduced charge of aggravated assault causing serious bodily injury. Evans was one of 3 defendants charged in this Cook County, Texas case. One, 38-year-old David Calhoun, was convicted in March on various assault charges and sentenced to 10 life sentences. The 3rd defendant in this case, David's wife Ashley, is due back in court next month.
What happened?
Now, a lot of this alleged abuse that we're about to get into, revealed during Calhoun's trial, is just too graphic to get into. I am telling you, it is so horrific. This is, I'm confident to say, this is the worst case of child abuse I have ever seen, I have ever covered.
Okay, now I'm scared. If he don't say it all, I'm gonna have to research it after, y'all, because I've heard some crazy child abuse cases. I'm talking about, I heard about, I don't know if y'all know the story about Juno, you know, in Asia. Y'all, I've heard some scary cases now. Now, 10 life sentences? What? Okay, it's definitely bad. What did he do? Like, do I need to fix my, nothing good. Oh my God, this is like about to be dark.
To give you an idea of this, Pamela Miller, who's a senior policy analyst with an institute that advocates for child abuse victims, labeled the abuse as, quote, intrafamilial child torture, saying it was almost indistinguishable from the type of torture that POWs, prisoners of war, and political prisoners suffered during the Korean War and the Vietnam War. Except here we're talking about children. According to prosecutors, Calhoun inflicted brutal abuse on several kids, stepchildren, nephews, inside of a fifth-wheel trailer. Court documents say the abuse started in 2017 after Calhoun started caring for his nephews. Caring is in quotations there. And 5 years later, in 2022, investigators found Calhoun's 16-year-old nephew in a Nebraska hotel room with several unrelated adults. The boy told police he'd escaped a home where he'd suffered severely. He showed them scars across his body, gave detailed accounts of being tied up for days, set on fire, burned, beaten, stabbed, and honestly, I think a word that I could use here that's appropriate, mutilated with objects. Again, I don't want to get into it more. It is nauseating. I physically got nauseous when I was reading what was going on here. And investigators later found multiple other victims. Calhoun's wife, Ashley.
Okay, let me hurry, because this might be a long video, y'all, because I might be pausing and talking. First of all, what? To do that to kids, like tying them up, setting them on fire, mutilating their body parts, just cutting them, beating them, assaulting them. Y'all, what? And I'm like, that's just what he did. And to do that to your family members, kids, nephews, like, you're a sick individual. And I don't know what religion, belief he looked like he was doing or in. I'm not getting into all that, because, you know, some people be like, they told them no, it's all illegal and it's insane that people do this. Yeah, like I said before, I've heard some sick cases that literally brought tears. That only happened when I listened to like Stephanie Sue podcast, because it's so detailed and this stuff be so freaking sad, because she really go deep into it. But dang, 10 life sentences is definitely necessary. I wonder what she did. This woman and the other woman they have to talk about. This woman, right, that I guess that we're talking about is only 20 years old. How do you get into something like that? I don't want to know. How do you even live with yourself? Y'all, and these people are supposed to be adults. I'm so tired of humans. I think I'm at that point. I am officially tired of humans, because it's like the stuff that happens should not happen. The stuff that happened is like insane. And the fact that he said 2022 says, like, that's sad that that's like recent.
Ashley and Maria Evans, they are accused of participating in the torture of these children. Both Ashley and Maria, they testified against Calhoun during his trial. Maria says Calhoun started grooming her when she was 17 years old and that he forced her to abuse the children. She claimed she was in fear for her life, and she did what she was told. Ashley testified that her husband forced her to have sex with a minor that was involved in this case. Jurors were also shown a picture of carvings on Ashley's chest that were done by Calhoun with a pen. We are talking sick stuff here. And as part of her plea deal, Maria pled guilty to that reduced charge of aggravated assault causing serious bodily injury. She was sentenced to 18 years in prison. No word yet on what.
Okay, let me, I got something to say. Look, so I've heard a lot of cases like the dynamic that's going on with these three adults. It's like, it's crazy how one man can have so much power over somebody. I never understood that. What is that called? What is that psychological Stockholm syndrome? You know, stuff like that. I don't know how the living situation was, but they're in like this century, so I wouldn't think that that stuff will happen anymore, but it do. But I can believe it. They said the carvers on her chest that he was like abusing her and then, you know, raised her to abuse kids, which is absolutely insane and disgusting and just, oh my God. This, y'all, this is like a cult. That's what this feels like already, like with these three. It's like a cult. He started it and he's just gonna continue to torture. Y'all know what's that man that with those, what's it called? You know, not the pilgrims. Y'all know what I'm talking about, that people, that man. I'll put a picture up here, okay? You know, they got all those kids and wives and they had the whole Netflix series about that. Something like that. But this is way worse, like 100% worse, okay? This man is like doing unthinkable stuff. But I'd be curious. I'm like, I don't know what goes through this stuff. How do, you know, it's hard to escape when you got a man like that. I'd be like, why can't all y'all just like gang up on him and kill him? Like, that's the stuff I think. But who knows what he'll do if he did that stuff. Is there more people involved? It can't just be these three, because that's a lot of stuff, especially 10 life sentences doing all that. Maybe it could, because they're kids. But these three definitely. But it's like, y'all, it's two sides. On one hand, one side, you say, oh, they were victims too, and they forced them, and that's why they're like this, and their brain is messed up because they was like sexually assaulted by him, forced to do stuff. But on the other hand, you're like, but y'all also adults now, and you have to learn that to lead that situation and try to get the help for those kids and get out and kill this man, or do what you gotta do and call 911 to get help. How has nobody called for help? I don't know. It's a lot of stuff going through my head right now because I've seen a lot of stuff like that. You know, reading about the cases. So this is definitely dark, definitely twisted. It's like, I'm on this side over here. I know stuff happens, but it's like, if only people can I guess you could say, gather up the courage. I feel like this sounds like a preaching TED talk. If they can like force themselves to get out. This one sounds so bad, but I'm trying to make it sound so like less, okay? If they can gather up that courage to get themselves out the abuse and like go get help near a phone, just call 911. It's like some could have changed, you know what I mean? So maybe some kids wouldn't have been hurt if that would have happened. But then there's also another one, y'all. I got one more, the middle people, okay? What if, this is a what if moment. What if, because of the abuse, they didn't want to call help and that they enjoy hurting kids? Like, there's always that too. So 3 different things. I tried to put this together enough. Let me just play the video.
I want to bring in licensed clinical social worker Anna Sonoda, who wrote the book Duck, Duck, Groom, Understanding How a Child Becomes a Target. Anna, thanks for coming on. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is this idea of Maria claiming that she was groomed to abuse, that she had no choice, and she was put in a position where she was coerced to abuse these children. What were your thoughts on that aspect of the story?
Well, Jesse, thank you for having me on the show today to discuss such an important topic. As you've already pointed out, these are heinous crimes, and the focus really needs to be on the well-being of these children moving forward. It is through their bravery and their courage that we're even facing this case to begin with. So thank you to those victims for standing up and coming forward with their stories. I think Maria's situation is very unique, and we have more that we will hopefully learn about her situation. It is not uncommon that male sexual predators and abusive individuals will go out of their way to recruit, especially females. You know, what do we know about females? Females are usually almost a protected class in and of themselves. People perceive women to be caregiving, kind, generous, and tender, typically. So in this case, it would not surprise me if Maria was in fact groomed by not just David, but possibly David and Ashley.
Yo, I also forgot that that other one was the wife. I literally forgot that was the wife. So now I have another theory over here. Not even theory, because I don't know what the theories about this. I think that we got all the, like, he's saying everything. The wife. I would believe it too, what if he was beating and abusing his wife and he chose her to recruit her, and then they got kids and started abusing kids together? Because women, they're more, like she said, more caring, more nurturing. More women would trust them. Was she a runaway? There's so much that I'm curious about, you know, because they do that. There'd be couples like that. They'll recruit runaways and stuff to, like, you know, it'd be like that in those nasty cases. So that actually would make sense. But I really did forget that that's the wife, y'all. How did I forget that?
I didn't even get into what Maria was accused of doing, because it's honestly, I don't want to say it. It's so sadistic and horrifying. I couldn't believe what I was reading. But someone would look at this and say, I don't buy it. How could she not call the police? How could she not escape? How could she not get out of that situation? What does it mean? Unless he had a gun to her head and forced her to do it, I don't believe it. What would you say to that?
So I think we need to back up a second and talk about the greater grooming process. So grooming is a perverse form of courtship, and it includes what I describe as the 4 F's. Those 4 F's are flattery, favoritism, forbidden fruits, and fear. And it's likely that Maria was in deep into the fear stage at the time that these expectations were placed on her by David and possibly even Ashley as well. So during the fear stage, this is when the predator will do things like threaten the individual and say, you're not ever going to go home unless you do these things. I'm going to release all this information about you if you don't do these things, if you don't comply. And one thing I really want to make clear, especially to your audience, is that grooming begins very sweetly. It doesn't start out this way. So it would be interesting. I'm curious to learn a little bit more about how Maria even got into the life of David and Ashley. How did she meet these two? Was she a contact through the children? Was she a contact maybe in the local area or in the neighborhood? Because predators need access. And as I'm sure we'll get into this during this conversation, David had isolation in spades with these children, with his stepchildren and his nephews living in the house with him. And we already know that the house is the highest risk area, the highest risk location for all child sexual abuse. 82% of the time, child sexual abuse is going to occur in the home where the child lives or the home where the predator lives. And this case is a great display of that.
So, and I'll also add to that in the sense that if Ashley's watching David Calhoun doing these incredibly violent, sadistic things to children, there is an argument both put by her and Ashley Calhoun that they were in fear for their life. But again, people will look at this, they will hear this, they will blame them equally for what happened to these children, and I honestly can't fault them. I hear what you're saying, and I hear what happens, but it's just difficult to try to understand the reasoning by why they did it. But I want to talk about David now and what he, forced them to do. This is the worst abuse I've ever seen, I've ever read about. What were your thoughts when you were reading this?
Jesse, I was aghast at what I read that David, Ashley, and Maria put those children through in that trailer. The scene that I was conjuring in my head is just pales in comparison to the torture that those children endured. And you brought up something earlier that I think to pull out as a special hallmark as well in this case, is that this is not the first time that David was abusing children. If anything, there are probably several more victims, and it's already been revealed that there were cases in East Texas in which children were abused at his hand. And what we have to remember about predators is that they are chronic offenders. These are not one-time off instances. These individuals typically, 70% of the time, have up to 9 victims, and 20% of the time they have up to 20 victims. Now, we don't know for sure how many victims in total David has, but this is an opportunity for your listeners to keep in mind that individuals they come in contact with or that come in contact with their children who are seeking out isolation, seeking out time away from other secure adults or safe adults, from observation, from the sight of others, that those are really, really big red flags that we all need to pay attention to as parents and as caregivers. In this scenario, you have him as a caregiver. One of the things I want your audience to keep in mind, Jesse, is that we need and rely on other adults all the time for the well-being of our families and our children. So what do I mean by that? I mean that part of the role that schools play is checking on children. Are they showing up? Are they showing up on time? Are they showing up fed? Are they showing up clothed properly? Are they showing up with any signs of ailment, illness, or abuse? Schools are one of our greatest catch basins for abuse. So for example, teachers might be able to alert a family or a school social worker or a school counselor if they see the presence of bruising, or if they see presence of a child who has really spotty attendance. And I'd be curious in this case if these children, these 4 individuals, ages 10 to 16, those are all ages in which children are required to attend school up until age 16, at least in the state where I live. So what other sort of oversight did these children have, and who's dropped the ball here? Was social services ever called? Was the Department of Family and Children's Services ever called? Because this abuse lasted since 2017. That is a 5-year span that we know of, where 4 children, 4 harmless,
Okay, y'all, I was over here doing my research and I'm gonna read it, okay? Because I'm like, how bad was it? Because they won't say it. And it took me a while. I was literally over here I was just on my phone trying to find it. I found it. And really, y'all, it is like beyond sick. I'm gonna read some of this stuff to y'all, okay? So, viewer discretion advised. Okay, so let me read this, okay? Because I need to. I'm like, I need to know how bad it was, so to picture how sick these people were. Sick, man. And the fact that these are family members of his, y'all, I don't even know. Okay. So the teen, this is the one they found in the hotel room. They said described daily abuse at the hands of Calhoun, which is the man, including stabbings, beatings, having his face and genital burned, wood lighters, and a counter prod almost daily, having his fingernails and toenails ripped off. The nephew also reported having numerous teeth knocked out with brass knuckles and stated he was forced to keep a hair tie wrapped around his testicle for 24 hours. And that's just part of it, y'all. Oh my God. Jeez, y'all. Oh my God. How are people like, they should have just gave him death along with the 10 life sentences. He was also given 2 20-year sentences. Just give him death. Kill his effer. I was about to say it, y'all. Just, how do you do that? How do you do this stuff? How do you knock somebody's teeth out? How do you taking fingernails off? Now that's what they talking about when they talking about that kind of torture. Counter prod. I see it. I see what they talking about now. If that's the stuff they was doing even back then, that's sick. Oh my God. What kind of, like, why are you torturing a kid like that? I don't understand. I'm so confused of how that was his nephew, y'all, his nephew. And how did the wife get into this? Because she was abused by him. How did she get into this? How did the girl get into this? How did anybody get into this? These are sick people. And definitely, y'all, let's continue. But I had to read that out loud, and that's only part of it. It's sick.
Children were victimized in their own home by somebody who was given legal authority to have custody of them. So I think there is more to be investigated here, especially when it comes to the Department of Family and Children's Services and what was not done and how these children were failed.
Let me ask you about that. In terms of abusers in your practice, if you're talking about someone abusing not necessarily their own biological children, but here their stepchildren or nephews, is that, as we're trying to understand why someone would do this, do you see the rationale different? Do you see it more with an abuser abusing people who are within their family, but they're not direct children, versus to stepchildren or nephews? Again, there's no excuse, there's no justification, but I'm trying to understand why somebody would do this. And does it have something to do with that relationship between him and these kids?
Well, you've raised a really interesting point, which is he had unlimited access because these children were living in his home. So what we have to consider is that we don't know the biological connection with these children. So it is protective, typically. Abuse does occur by biological parents and incest does occur, but that is on the lower end of likelihood than individuals who are boyfriends to a parent who has minor children or lovers of somebody who has minor children in the home, because there is no biological protection. There is nothing that says, you're part of me and so therefore I'm going to protect you. We see this all the time in the animal kingdom, for example. When a female picks a new male, typically one of the things that will happen is that the offspring from prior connections will be killed. So in a way, we see this sort of playing out in human relationships. One of the things we have to keep in mind, though, is that there is no justification whatsoever for any sort of harm or abuse to children. And children are never at fault for this situation or being survivors of abuse. And in this case, we have multiple adults who failed to recognize.
But here's what I would say. I'd say, the two women in this case, they would say, oh, I was under the influence, the fear of Daniel Calhoun. If you interview Daniel Calhoun, what would he say? What would be his justification for this? Assuming he admits it, But in your experience, why do they justify it? How do they?
A deep dive into David's childhood, his upbringing, maybe his initial relationships, any of those early foundational relationships that he had, you would probably see a tremendous amount of instability. You might see domestic violence. You might see substance abuse. We also don't know what role substances played inside this house. If there were substances being used on a regular basis that may have been at play when these torturous acts were being done to these children. And one of the things I like to focus on is we don't understand why people do these things. We have some ideas, and the Association for the Treatment of Sexual...
I think it's all about control. Because what makes somebody do that? And then he had to start this. But you got to look at... Then it's like, I'm not saying but because of him. You have to look into his childhood. Was he abused? But I don't know. I feel like these men that do this stuff, they're just sick individual predators who prey on kids and don't care if it's your family members or whatever. They just want to hurt you. So he could literally, is just a nasty individual. But even, and she said it before, even though you got to look at how did the girl get in the house? I'm still on that part. What role did the wife play in this? They're all sick. It's like, I know they was abused by him, but I swear somebody could have called the cops. Because it sounded like it was just them three. I'm thinking there's more people involved, but it sounded like it was just these three adults involved in this sick torture of children. We have to remember that that's what this is, torture. And it's hard to feel sorry for these women, even though they most likely was abused, but it's like, now you got younger people under you. That's why it's harder. But yeah.
Sexual abusers, ATSA.org is a wonderful site for people to go to get more information about the research that's done on sexual predators. But one of the things we need to do as caring adults and parents is we need to think about how this is done. Because we're not going to change individuals who are coming in contact with our children, but we can change the way that we present ourselves and create a strategy, an offensive strategy, in order to protect our own families and children.
And you know what else? I didn't even mention this. The idea of, and by the way, that was incredibly well said, and I think a really very important point taken. But he not only forced these women to abuse these children, he forced the children to participate in it. There was one instance that I read about where he forced one of the children to extract the tooth out of another child. And so in your experience, we'll end it here with this part, that's something you see too, right? Where the abusers force the people they're abusing to also engage in abuse. So it's not only just the women in this case, but also the children.
And that is literally just raising them to be abusers. That's all it is. It's crazy how somebody can have that much power over one person. These are kids, by the way, too. So they're literally fearing for their life, afraid, scared. So they're just doing what they're told, unfortunately. And once again, these other two women could have tried to help. I don't know. But I don't know. Y'all don't know what was going on in there. But it's so sad for the kids. I don't understand how somebody can have, or why would you want that much power? Why would you want to torture people? Extracting the tooth, that is crazy. I'm just thinking of pliers. I don't know why I'm thinking that's exactly probably what it was. That's a bone. That's not easy. Ripping out teeth, breaking fingernails. That's a lot of pain, and that is so sad they had to go through that.
Well, and we saw this, right, with Maria's whole stance in court, which was, I was under, and I was in a situation against my will, and I was forced to do these things. And we cannot underestimate the power of manipulation, and grooming is a perverse form of manipulating an individual in order to get sexual satisfaction from either watching events take place or participating in events themselves with minors. And there are too many victims to count in this case. And by far, the most important thing that we can come away with this is that the courage and the bravery of these children to stand up, to speak out, that young 16-year-old male who spoke up to their coworker and got out of there, and then was able not just to protect himself, but to then protect the others in the household, is to be commended.
I say this a lot, but I'm going to say it again. First of all, David Calhoun is where he belongs. Should never be let out. He will never be let out. We know the conclusion for Maria. We will see what happens with Ashley. But I know I say this a lot. Our thoughts and our prayers go out to the victims we cover in these cases. But for these children especially, I mean, I hope they can recover both physically and emotionally and mentally and psychologically from this, because again, it is the worst abuse I have ever seen and I have ever reported on. But as you said, Anna, it's such an important topic. It's important that people and educators and those around people can recognize when there's an issue, and this shouldn't have gone on.
Yeah, this was really sick. Y'all know what's crazy though? I still don't think this is the worst ones. This isn't the worst one I've heard. That Juno case probably, it take the cake with torture. It was a lot of stuff involved when they made that little girl starve to death, and you know, it was just it was so much. It was stuff involving like a can. Y'all, it was like, when I tell y'all, this is actually, unfortunately, isn't the worst of the worst, but it's bad. It's probably number 2 up there. It's up there. How can it's just so many questions. How can people be this sadistic? Because that's what it is. You have to use that word with people. Sadistic. Stockholm, because these women, they're not able to leave because of him. They're forcing. I don't know if it's Stockholm, because I don't know if they're in love with this man or whatever that's like, but he tortured them, so he forced them to stay. So it's staying out of fear. And also, since they were groomed by him, but the wife, I'm curious about her part, because I'm pretty sure the girl, we know she was most likely groomed into this, but the woman, what was their life like before this? You know what I mean? Like, how did she get into this? Did he find her to do this and then abuse her to force her to do it, to lure children? I'm so confused. Where's the mother of these kids? Y'all, how many kids was it? I know it was some people, but it's so many unknown questions. But y'all remember, y'all hear, I told y'all some of the stuff that happened here. I'm just talking about removing fingernails. That's, oh my God, that amount of pain. I get, your toe hurt, your toenail hurt and wrinkling nail hurt if you pull a hangnail. Imagine pulling somebody's fingernails off, ripping teeth out, mutilating them. Just, oh my God, unthinkable, absolutely sad, crazy amount of pain for a child to have to go through. 10 life sentences is not enough. They should have just gave him death penalty, because sick effort. Ugh. And they, unfortunately, it'd be like that when you're an adult and you participate in something like that. Even though you went through it, you're going to go to jail too because you participated. That's just the law. And unfortunately, you know, it'd be times where people would be like, there's always two sides to this too, with people who've been abused. They'd be like, they have a lot of trauma, so they need to go get help. Prison ain't going to help that. It's going to make it worse. But then on the other hand, they participated, they hurt kids, and they deserve to go to jail too. Geez, this going to be a lot of mental therapy for the kids. And I'm just thinking about the kids. This is really sad. This was a dark case. Jeez, they talking about Vietnam War torture methods. If these people was doing this back then like that, it's probably even more barbaric back then too, because it's like the 50s. But I'd be making jokes about bringing back Victorian era methods for these people, but geez, that's just it's so sad. It's so scary to know that people are out here really doing this. Y'all, we live among these people, and it's crazy what you would never know what's going on in their door. Like, you would never know what's going on in people houses. That's so scary. Wow. Stay safe out there, guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.